Hey everybody, Michael here from GetFitOver40.com with another TRT video. Today we're going to go over some of the top TRT questions, of course with some answers, at least my answers. I suggest you do your own research on all these subjects and topics. It never hurts, right? Just because I say it on the internets doesn't make it 100% the truth, but it's a good starting point. Hopefully it gives you some answers to some of your possible questions. I do have it written down, so that means it's also over on the GetFitOver40.com website. I like writing it out first so I have something to go by so I don't forget anything. I might be a little robotic when I read through some of it, but I'll add my little bits and pieces in on over and above this. But there is a written version over at the website, so check that out if you want to, go through it and read it. Some people just absorb information better by reading than listening. I do also want to mention that I am connected to or have a relationship with a company called Royal Medical Center, and they do offer TRT in the US. And so I do have a promo code. It's GFO, so basically Get Fit, so GFO40, Get Fit Over 40. That's the coupon code, and I do have links. I'll put a link in the description here in this video and also on the article. If you're interested in TRT in the United States, you can take a look at what they offer. You'll get a little bit of a discount if you use that promo code for the first 6 months, I believe. Close to $50 off, so you might want to take advantage of that. I don't have anything in Canada at this point. There are more and more companies, or I guess doctors, coming on board. I guess centers. It's hard to say. There was really nothing or very little available anti-aging type clinics or whatever you want to call them, TRT in Canada. But now there seems to be more. So if you are somebody who represents a company like that and you want to connect with me, I can then offer maybe a promo code to my Canadian viewers. Just to give you an idea, generally speaking, my promo code for the Royal Medical Center generally gets them about 15 to 20 new clients every month. So if that's something you're interested in, I can't tell you what would happen here in Canada, but I do know I get a lot of questions from people in Canada about where they can get TRT here in Canada locally. So let's get on here with the top TRT questions and answers. Is testosterone safe? That's probably the biggest question, or should be the most important question. And so in general, most studies are in favor of TRT being safe and actually beneficial to your health. And since low testosterone can also have negative effects. So I mean, essentially, if you've got low testosterone, there can be negative health side effects, right? It can affect longevity, all of that kind of stuff. Having adequate testosterone can actually improve your longevity, can improve your overall health. Getting on the high side, again, can be detrimental. So that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about taking steroids or any of that stuff. So it's important to have proper hormone levels. They should be in the norms. If they're low or high, that's a problem. Whole point of TRT is to get you in that normal range, which is going to give you optimal health. And that's what this is all about. So does that mean there's no risks? Well, the second question here, what risks are associated with TRT? Because there's going to be, with anything, even just eating food, there can be a risk. Allergies, right? Drinking water, you can drink too much water and die. It has happened. So there's always, doesn't matter what it is, there are potential risks. So some of the risks could be, some people can experience a rash or itching at the injection site, most likely from an allergy or reaction to the fluids. It's not necessarily the testosterone. It could be the esters, the oils used to help your body absorb the testosterone. Now this is usually just temporary. It's just a minor inconvenience. Sometimes just trying a different testosterone with a different base ester or oil can make a difference, right? So check that out if you are having that problem. All right, TRT can increase the risk of heart attack, stroke, but generally this is more for higher doses, which can cause like high blood pressure, not to mention other things like, estrogen can increase. And when that estrogen increases, when you have too much testosterone, you can have water retention. That can lead to high blood pressure and stroke. So I would say as long as you're keeping your dose within a healthy range, as long as you're monitoring your blood pressure, as long as you're monitoring your estrogen, that shouldn't be a problem. But a lot of people, they'll do it themselves. They'll be on their own TRT. They call it a TRT program. They're doing it themselves. They're not getting blood work done. They're not consulting a doctor. So that could be a possible risk. Now, the same is kind of true with sleep apnea. If your blood pressure rises, if your body weight increases, if you have a lot of water retention, you can get sleep apnea. So that's basically where you kind of stop breathing while you're sleeping. And I've had that too. When I get a little too heavy, I've been as high as like 220. I start to get sleep apnea issues. If I'm holding a lot of water, if I'm not managing my water properly, if I'm having too many carbs or drinking too much and I get water retention, I will get sleep apnea too. I'll just find myself waking up out of breath, basically because I've stopped breathing while I'm sleeping. So that's an issue for some people. Take care of that. Can TRT cause prostate cancer? So this is another risk I kind of wanted to single out on its own. Prostate cancer can relate to TRT. There's a lot of debate about it, like is it the testosterone that causes it? What's the deal? Right? Not everybody's on the same page here. But a lot of doctors will say that testosterone can aggravate a prostate cancer. So it can either make that prostate sort of enlarge a bit. It can make the cancers happen faster. So it can speed it up. And some doctors will even essentially, they'll get rid of testosterone. They'll put you on drugs that reduce the testosterone in your body, because that'll slow down the prostate cancer, and in some cases just stop it completely, reverse it. But then you're going to have the other side effects of low testosterone. So it's not a win-win situation. It's a win in terms of not dying from cancer, prostate cancer, but in terms of feeling good, you're probably going to feel like absolute garbage if you've got no testosterone in your body. But I guess that's the lesser of two evils. All right. So is TRT the same as taking steroids? So the short answer is no. However, many bodybuilders do inject testosterone along with other performance-enhancing drugs as part of their steroid protocol, their bodybuilding protocol. A TRT dose is generally anywhere from 80 milligrams to as high as 200. I mean, some people might go even higher than that, but then that's verging on not really TRT at that point. So, a TRT dose is generally, sorry, I said that already. Now, bodybuilders, they're going to be starting out at usually around 500. 400 is like that. Like, why? If you're just basically replacing your natural testosterone, if you're not low on it and you're replacing it with, say, 200, you're not going to get any benefit. Maybe for a little bit while your body kind of is producing some and you're on TRT, but your body will stop producing the natural testosterone, and pretty soon you're going to be back to baseline. So the real only advantage for bodybuilders is to take super physiological doses, so much higher doses than what a TRT dose would be. And it's usually at least double that, if not triple, sometimes quadruple, like a gram. So 1,000 milligrams of testosterone is not uncommon in the bodybuilding world, along with other drugs like decadurabolin, like D-bol, oral drugs, Tren, all kinds of stuff that they're going to throw in there. Anavar, Winstrol, they throw all these steroids, hormones, they're kind of, some of them will have testosterone baselines or D8, different ones. So essentially they're not testosterone. They can have a testosterone base, but they're basically, it's this mix. These steroids can be either more anabolic, less anabolic, more androgenic, less androgenic than testosterone, but they use all these drugs in conjunction with each other to get the results they're looking for. Okay? So no, it's not the same. As again, bodybuilders are looking for super physiological levels of testosterone and other hormones to get them well beyond what they naturally could get in terms of muscle growth, whereas TRT is basically getting you back to the normal levels you would have had if you don't have low testosterone. All right, how is TRT taken? So there are several popular ways to take testosterone. Injections are, understood. It's generally conducted weekly or bi-monthly, and in some cases even monthly. And that depends on the oils, the esters used, and how the testosterone absorbs into the body. So there's something called the half-life, and I'm just really going to briefly cover this because I want to make a total different video, a whole different video that covers this. But essentially, if the half-life is 1 week, that means if you took 200 milligrams of testosterone out of the right away, right? Let's say that's the only amount you took 200, you're going to be at, kind of 200 there, distributing through your body, and then a week later you'll have about 100 milligrams distributing through your body. Now it doesn't get distributed all at once, so keep that in mind. It has to absorb over days, so you're probably never going to see 200 like in your system all at one point, in your bloodstream or in your body, right? At one point, because it sort of absorbs in, right? So just keep that in mind. And then let's say once you go from 200 and you're down to 100 the next week, now you're adding another 200 injections. So you're kind of at 300, and then you're going to be down to 150, and then 150 will be topped off with 200. So now you're at 350. So you can see it kind of goes up, and it'll get actually close. If you're on 200 a week, it'll get really close after months of using it to being close to 400 just under in your system, but not all at once, okay? So keep that in mind. That's sort of how it works. I want to cover that in another video. But some testosterones have half-lives of, there's different esters and oils and things that the testosterone is basically it's in, right? So that's what it's in. It's just like that fluid isn't completely testosterone. It's got other esters and oils in there. And depending on how those absorb in the body will depend on how long that injection lasts, right? So some of them can go like a month. I think there's even some out there that'll go a couple months off of one injection. So it's there's much more testosterone in the injection, but it distributes through the body. It dissolves, and it's not really dissolving, but it's distributing in the body. It's breaking down, and the oils are only letting so much out over a period of time, okay? Hopefully I kind of explained that sort of okay. All right, so another one are gel tabs. They're commonly used, especially if a person isn't really excited about getting injections. Maybe they're afraid of needles. Maybe they don't want to do their own injections, and they don't want to have to come into the office every week or every 2 weeks or whatever to get injections because it takes time. So they can take these little gel tabs, and even women will take those. So women can have those if they have low testosterone and low estrogen. They can take the gel tabs. It'll just be a lot less, like maybe 1 per day versus 4 or 5 for a man. So that's something that you can do, and those are a lot easier to do. Now, those are a little harder on the liver because they do have to pass through the whole, like the digestive system and go through the liver, whereas injections typically don't, they don't have as many negative effects on your organs. And then there's something called transdermal testosterone or skin patches that are applied typically once per day to the upper arm, allowing the testosterone to absorb through the body, into the body through the skin. And then lastly, there's something like, I guess you'd call them implants or tablets that can be applied directly into the muscle or under the skin and absorb over several weeks and even months. So again, that's another way. It's like an injection, but these tablets dissolve slower because they're in a different state. They're more in a solid state that breaks down over time slower than if it was in a oil or some sort of other liquid, right? Now, do you need an AI? So what is an AI? An AI is an aromatase inhibitor when on TRT. So what that means is it reduces the amount of estrogen that your body either has or can see. So there's different ways that they work. Some will literally block it completely from being produced. Some will put like a little thing, like they'll bind to estrogens, and your body just doesn't see them because they're bound, right? So they can't be used. Kind of the same net effect. Your body can't use the estrogen, so therefore it's not going to harm you if it's too much, right? That's kind of the goal. If you have too much estrogen, that can cause problems. So let's talk about why you first need you need to understand what an AI is to use for and why you might need one. So testosterone, both men and women, partially converts to estrogen, and estrogen is also a necessary sex hormone both men and women require for proper body function and overall health. That said, too much estrogen is not a good thing and can lead to water retention. It can lead to high blood pressure, gynecomastia, so that's like basically like a gristle or fat buildup on the nipple area, right? That area. And then men, you certainly don't want that. And it can also cause mood imbalances, even sexual dysfunction if it's too high or low. And most TRT doses shouldn't really require an AI, especially if you're in a lower, say 100 to 150 dose. You shouldn't require an AI because your testosterone is also elevated, and essentially it's like cholesterol. Cholesterol isn't so bad when your good and bad are in balance. Higher estrogen isn't so bad when your testosterone is elevated. So there's got to be like, there's basically a happy place where the testosterone and the estrogen are balancing each other off. So in other words, if your estrogen is a little high, but your testosterone is a little high, you might have zero side effects from it. It's sort of person dependent, but typically on a normal TRT dose, you're going to be on the high side with estrogen, but you're also going to be on the high norm, so high norm side with the testosterone, so it all works out in the end. Okay? Now, for some people, though, if it's too high, it can cause side effects. So in this situation, an AI or an aromatase inhibitor may be required. So even if your ranges seem okay on paper or through the blood work, everybody just is different when it comes to hormones. And even if your hormones, your estrogen isn't off the charts or anything, you can still have water retention, high blood pressure. You can still get gynecomastia on a TRT dose. So just be aware of it, but it's just not super common. Now keep in mind, low estrogen in your body can also have a negative effect like joint pain, mood swings, tiredness, again, sexual dysfunction, and even less muscle mass. So it's good to make sure that you're not using too high of an AI, because you can crash your estrogen, and that's a bad thing. By crashing your estrogen, you need estrogen to build muscle too. So if it's crashed, the testosterone that you're hoping is going to help you build muscle and get up, back to the normal muscle building ranges, if you crash your estrogen, you're going to actually not be able to build muscle as easily. So make sure that you're always keeping those levels in a happy place. Get your blood work done, see your doctor. That's my advice to you when it comes to those things. Should you go on and off cycle when on TRT? So what that means is, like, the idea of going on and off a cycle is something more commonly associated with bodybuilding. As bodybuilders they take really high levels of steroids. They take that cocktail of testosterone and other steroids. It's hard on the body. It's hard on the organs. It's just hard on their system. They're eating a ton of food. And so they take a break every once in a while. They get off all the gear. And this is something old school bodybuilders did in the past. They get off the gear. They let their body rest. But they're going to notice, obviously, a lot of muscle loss. They're going to lose strength. They're going to probably feel pretty crappy because their testosterone is going to crash, right? It's going to go way down below normal levels at a certain point once their half-lives have fallen off, right, from what they were taking. And, it's kind of almost like what they did, they're losing a lot of the results of what they did, okay? So that's the going off thing. Now, more recently, it's more understood how this works. And so bodybuilders nowadays typically don't come completely off. They'll do what's called blasting and cruising. So what that means is they'll take all the high levels of steroids, especially if they're prepping for a contest or they're bulking. They want to put a lot of muscle on in a shorter period of time. They want to get ready for a show. And then once they've done the show, they'll probably taper it off a little bit near the end so they're not holding a lot of water. They'll use steroids that tend to cut you up more, that make you look more defined. They'll be on a huge diet to get lean. And then once that's all over, they'll cruise. So what that means is I wouldn't call it a TRT dose, because these guys are pretty huge. And to keep that size, you can't just be on a TRT dose. They're going to probably be on about 500 milligrams of test a week just to keep most of what they gain during their bulk or their prep. So that's a blast and cruise. That's not coming off. So getting back to the TRT and why you wouldn't want to do an on-off cycle is because, for similar reasons, you weren't producing testosterone to begin with. You needed the TRT to get you to more normal levels. So what do you think is going to happen when you get off of it? If you say, go on it for 6 months and say, I'm going to go off for 2 months, give my body a break. Number one, it doesn't need a break because you weren't blasting. You weren't hammering your body with a ton of steroids. It doesn't need the break. Number two, if you come off, your body is getting this exogenous testosterone. So it's shut down any testosterone you may have been producing, which was already low. So now you're going to crash. Your body literally won't be producing any testosterone while you're off. It may or may not come back a little bit, but probably not to where you want it to be because you weren't producing testosterone in the first place. And so you're going to feel like garbage. You're going to lose muscle. You're going to lose sex drive. You're going to be, experience potential mood swings, depression, all of these things for your perceived idea of a break from being on testosterone, which you really didn't need in the first place. So my suggestion is to be on a dose that's healthy, that gives you the right amount of testosterone in your system to be, I would say, in the high norms. Manage your estrogen, make sure everything's where it needs to be. Also get your blood work done, do all that, get your blood pressure and your red blood cell count done, make sure all of that's in line. If all of that's fine and dandy, you don't need to come off ever, really. It's something you're going to potentially be on for the rest of your life. There's really no magical way to come off it. and get your testosterone up to where it should be. At least at this point, there's nothing that I know of that can do that for you. All right, so we're getting close here to the end. Yeah, so this is a good one. Do your testicles shrink, and can you still have children or kids on TRT? So yes, in most cases, your testicles will shrink. They're likely going to shrink unless, for instance, you weren't producing testosterone much at all, and they had already shrunk because your body wasn't producing testosterone via your testicles. When that happens, you're not producing much sperm, so your testicles shrink. The same things can happen for bodybuilders, especially if they didn't have a problem producing testosterone. They'll go from normal sized testicles to very small. Like, it depends on the person. They could go as small as half or even a quarter the size. So some people can have like little grape-like ones. It really depends on the person, okay? How big they were when you started and how much testosterone they were producing when you started versus basically producing nothing once you get on TRT, right? So yes, that is something that can happen. Now, again, when you get on testosterone, you stop producing testosterone, which a lot of it comes from the testicles, which means you stop producing or produce very little sperm. So yes, it can also affect your ability to reproduce, to get your spouse pregnant and have children. But there are drugs that can counter this. A most common drug, it's one of these drugs now that's still around. I think it was kind of in, then it was sort of like not in because some of the drug companies weren't allowed to use it, but I think it might be back now. It's called HCG. I can't remember what it actually stands for, but if you look it up, HCG is something that can actually, it will help your body start to produce its own testosterone. Therefore, it starts producing more sperm, and then basically your testicles will get larger. You'll be able to produce more of your own natural testosterone along with sperm in your testicles. So in that case, you should be able to become fertile again and have kids. There's also another drug called Clomid, which is similar to that. It's basically an anti-estrogen drug. It does reduce estrogen, or it actually makes your body, it binds to the estrogen, doesn't stop it from being produced, but it binds to the estrogen, and then your body basically doesn't see it. And so that's something you can take for if your estrogen is high, but it also helps you produce your own testosterone, which again then can enlarge your testicles if that's something you're trying to do, if that's important to you. But I don't believe it will work as well as something like HCG. And I know there's other things out there, but these are two. There's more options, but there are things you can do about testicle shrinkage and fertility. Okay, hope I got through it all. This is actually getting to be a little bit of a long video, so we'll wrap it up. Again, check out the links in the description for the TRT Clinic, Royal Medical Center. And again, use the GFO40 code to save some money if you're interested. And just check them out. Do your own research. You can check out other TRT companies as well, but that's one that I stand behind. They've been good to me. I've been good to them, hopefully, and hopefully it's a mutual benefit for everybody. And if you're Canadian TRT, or if you're into some sort of longevity, or do the TRT and whatever it might be in Canada, right, for health, then get a hold of me and we'll see if we can figure something out. All right, thanks for watching another GetFitOver40.com video. Don't forget to subscribe. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time, take care.